gets better. It gets better at the end, I promise. It'll get uplifting. Well, Shabbat Shalom. So, I don't know, how many of you are California transplants here? How many from LA? Nobody walks in LA. Nobody walks in LA. I lived in LA for 10 years, and I would say about half of that time was spent in the car. Especially, there were years where I had internships in the San Fernando Valley. And so every day after my classes at Hebrew Union College, which were closer to downtown, I would have to spend usually an hour, which is probably on the low end, probably closer to 2 hours in slow-moving traffic, driving up and down. It was the 10 to the 405 to the 101. But most of that traffic was on the 405. I got to know the landmarks really well. There are the exits that lead you into fancy neighborhoods, and then there's that stretch that takes you past the important Jewish cultural buildings like the Skirball Museum and the American Jewish University. I see some nodding. Yes, you know exactly what stretch I'm talking about. And when you drive a road like that day after day, you get to know the more mundane landmarks as well. You notice certain bends in the road, quirky billboards, exits with interesting names. And this is why, after years of driving that road, when a certain 405 overpass received media attention this week, I recognized the location immediately. It was like a sense memory. Seeing the pictures of that overpass, I could remember what it felt like to sit for hours in LA traffic, surrounded by anonymous people all stuck inside their own vehicles. I remember taking in the smell of smog and air conditioning, feeling dazed as we all just gazed up at the road ahead. What it must have felt like to be at a standstill on that road last Saturday. I assume all of the drivers on the road could see that there was something unusual on the horizon. And then as they slowly approached the overpass, they saw the words, "Honk if you know, Kanye is right about the Jews," looming up above. And behind their hateful signs were humans holding out their arms in a Nazi salute. Every time we look out at the world, we do so with our Jewish eyes. And last Saturday, that view was painful. It was personal. This is not casual prejudice. This is threatening, menacing public hatred towards the Jewish community. Supporting a vocal anti-Semite who has used his platform as a rapper and a songwriter and a producer and a designer to garner power and attention. And I don't imagine that his vile words about going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people were coincidentally timed with the 4-year anniversary of the 11 Jews who were murdered as they prayed at the Tree of Life synagogue. Let me be clear. I do not care deeply at all about Kanye West or whatever name he wants to be known by. I am not terribly concerned by whatever nonsense he chooses to tweet, and I'm not really interested in his misguided ploys for publicity or power. What I do care about, and what does worry me, are the people who are listening to him or looking to him for some kind of purpose or legitimacy. What worries me is what my children will see when they look out at the world with their Jewish eyes. What messages will they see on the horizon? In this week's Torah portion, Noah and his family, too, are stuck in a vehicle at a standstill. They did not travel on the 405, nor did they experience any traffic as they floated on dark seas in an ark with a veritable zoo full of animals for 40 days and 40 nights. Vayigbaru hamayim, vayirbu me'od al vatelech hateva al pnei hamayim. The waters swelled and increased greatly upon the earth, and the ark drifted upon the waters. Instead of being surrounded by cars, Noah and his family were surrounded by water. but they were similarly stuck in their vessel, unable to arrive at their destination until circumstances beyond their control cleared the way. The rabbis can only guess at what kind of depravity Noah and his family were exposed to before the great flood. Torah only tells us that God considered Noah an ish tzaddik, a righteous man, pure, at least compared to those of his generation. We can imagine that when Noah looked out at the world, he saw people that were full of Hamas, or violence. We can imagine that Noah's world was familiar with the kind of hatred shown by the neo-Nazis standing on the overpass. We can imagine Noah's fear as he readied himself to step out of the ark when the rains finally subsided. We can imagine his concern that perhaps the world had not yet changed. What if it was still the frightening place it had been before he and his family and his animals boarded the boat? We imagine Noah drawing a deep breath. He steps out onto the deck of the ark and lifts his eyes to the sky. And there, waiting to meet his gaze, is a sign from God. Et kashti natati v'haita la'ot brit beini uvein haaretz. I have set my bow in the clouds, and it shall serve as a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. Noah sees a rainbow, a blessing. On the horizon, there is a covenantal sign that there are better days ahead. From here, we learn the tradition of offering words of blessing every time we see a rainbow. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, zocher habrit, v'ne'eman bivrito v'kayam ba'amaro. Holy One of blessing, your presence fills creation. True to your word, you remember your covenant with creation. According to the rabbis, even on our worst days, we are commanded to count 100 blessings. This is easier on some days than on others. It depends on what we see when we look out the window. We gaze upon the horizon. Do we see a world that is reminiscent of Noah's generation? Or do we find a reminder of God's promise, the blessing of human potential? In other words, when we look at the world with our Jewish eyes, do we see signs of hatred held up by neo-Nazis in an angry salute? Or do we see a rainbow? We are supposed to count 100 blessings every day. So let's take a look at the world around us. Alex Toussaint, a popular Peloton instructor, made a pointed statement in his class on Monday that he would no longer play Kanye West music in his classes. Because I love everybody, he said. I want to make sure everybody feels safe in my environment and in my classes. You know I stand with you. I do not support hate speech whatsoever. And Toussaint's bold statement inspired the social exercise platform to state officially that no new classes would feature any music by Kanye West. We count this blessing. Adidas, who has sponsored styles designed by West, has cut ties and stopped the production of his products as he doubled down on anti-Semitic hate speech. Ye, this is his new name for himself, Ye's recent comments and actions have been unacceptable, hateful, and dangerous, they said in a statement. This follows the terminations of his contracts with other major corporations like Gap and JP Morgan Chase. We count this blessing. Closer to home, the Maricopa NAACP sent out a statement of support to all of us, their Jewish friends and allies. Dr. Karen Hardin, president of our local branch, wrote, "Recent vociferous anti-Semitic comments by Kanye West are unacceptable and will not be condoned by our organization. The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, or the NAACP, and American Jewish Community have a long shared history. The 103-year-old Maricopa County branch of the NAACP also has an important relationship with the Jewish community in Arizona. We tirelessly uphold our mission by focusing on collective action in opposition to long-standing and ongoing threats to our democracy and disenfranchisement of religious or minority groups. Now, more than ever, especially in Arizona, it is time for all of us to step up and take actions necessary to challenge activities that impede inclusivity in our society. We count this blessing. My friend, Jay Tinsley, who I met through our shared work in the Phoenix Black Jewish cohort, is now also a part of our Chevra religious school community, along with his Jewish wife and children. He spoke with the Jewish News this week explaining, "As I become proximate with other people in the Jewish community, my fear for them increases." He hopes that the silent majority who believe in the goodness of everyone will stand up and make their voices heard for what's right. We count this blessing. These blessings abound. Part of seeing the world with Jewish eyes means that there will be days when we wonder if we can trust the people in the car next to us. We will see menacing strangers standing on the overpass or waiting on the shore as we pull our boat out of the rising seas of uncertainty. But even on the hardest days, we can take comfort. There are so many people who are blessings for us, who stand with us, who are the hopeful rainbow on the horizon. I am reminded of the famous poem by Pastor Martin Niemöller. "Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak up because I was not a Jew." And I am consoled today because in the face of overt hatred, when it would have been easy to stay silent, our true friends in this world spoke up for us. We count this blessing. The world will not always be kind. This week in Torah, we learn that sometimes there will be rain and floods and rough waters, but so too will there be rainbows. If we are willing to step out on deck and look up with our Jewish eyes, we can see the promise and see the good. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God. Your presence fills creation, allowing us to count, even on the hardest days, these many blessings. Amen.